Psychologists studying social exhaustion have noticed something strange. Some of the most self-aware people they study start talking to fewer and fewer people over time. Not all of them, but enough that it forms a real pattern. At first it looks like burnout. Sometimes it looks like arrogance. Friends start whispering that something changed in them. But the real reason isn't burnout, and it isn't ego. It's something most people never see coming, and once you notice it in yourself, you can't unnotice it. Here's where it usually starts. Not with a dramatic event, with something small. You're at dinner, laughing at a joke, and some part of you notices the laugh isn't fully real. You check your phone, see no new messages, and feel something closer to relief than disappointment. You leave a party early and realize, walking to your car, that you have more energy right now than you did 3 hours ago inside it. If you've felt any of that, you've probably asked yourself the obvious question, what's wrong with me? That's the wrong question. And the right one is far more interesting. So what's actually happening? To be clear, this isn't universal. Plenty of highly self-aware people become more social over time, not less, and use their awareness to build deeper relationships instead of fewer ones. This video is about a specific pattern, not a rule. But for the people it does apply to, psychologists who study emotional processing describe something specific, an overactive kind of pattern detection, where the brain quietly cross-references what someone says against what they've done before, faster than the person can consciously track. Translation: the mind starts noticing the gap between what people say and what they actually do. And once it starts, it doesn't stop. This is the part almost nobody talks about. Most people process a conversation once. They hear it. They respond. It's done. In this pattern, the mind runs a second pass underneath the first, constantly checking tone against history, promises against follow-through. And to be fair, everyone does a version of this sometimes. It's not a superpower, and it doesn't make anyone wiser than the people around them. It's closer to heightened sensitivity than intelligence, the nervous system, picking up more social data than it was built to comfortably process, which is exactly why it's exhausting. Instead of impressive, picture it concretely. You're mid-conversation with someone, nodding along, and part of your brain is quietly filing away that this is the third time they've mentioned a favor they need. You're not trying to notice. You just do. So the mind does the only thing it can do to protect itself. It starts filtering. Fewer people, fewer conversations, fewer rooms that require performing instead of just existing. To everyone else, it looks like withdrawal. But this is exactly where most people misunderstand what's happening, because the filtering creates a second problem nobody warns you about. The fewer people you let close, the more each remaining person matters, and the more each person matters, the more it hurts when even one of them turns out to be exactly what you were trying to filter out in the first place. This is where a lot of self-aware people accidentally make a mistake. They mistake distance for safety. They think fewer people means fewer disappointments. Often it just means bigger ones, concentrated into a smaller circle. That's the part that changes how this actually plays out in someone's life. It's not simply withdraw and feel better, it's withdraw, then have to figure out who actually deserves what's left of your attention. That second part is much harder, and it's where the real work begins. Now, before this turns into a compliment for anyone who's ever gone quiet on their friends, it's worth being honest about something else. Not all withdrawal is this kind of clarity. Sometimes it's exhaustion wearing a disguise. Sometimes it's anxiety, or disappointment, or plain avoidance, dressed up as insight because that feels more acceptable to admit. Mistaking one for the other can quietly become its own trap. So how do you actually tell the difference? There's one sign that separates them, and most people miss it. It's not whether someone pulls back. It's what happens in the silence afterward. The first kind tends to feel like relief. You put your phone down and your shoulders actually drop. The second kind tends to leave a low hum of guilt that never fully resolves, even alone. Same behavior on the outside. Completely different experience underneath. Assuming it's the first kind, what happens next is the part that actually explains the title. Because here's the twist most people don't expect. The pulling away isn't really about other people at all. It looks like it is. The friend who only calls when they need something. The compliment that has an edge hidden in it. But the real shift isn't, I understand people better now, so I need less of them. That's the surface story. The real shift is quieter and much bigger. Think of the last time you sat in total silence and didn't reach for your phone. If that felt uncomfortable at first and then, a few minutes in, strangely calm, that's the shift. Silence stops feeling like exclusion and starts feeling like access. Access to thoughts that were always there, just permanently drowned out by everyone else's noise. Once someone experiences that even once, something changes that's hard to reverse. They stop treating quiet as empty time to be filled and start protecting it the same way they'd protect a full night's sleep, not a luxury, something the mind actually needs to function. This is where the real transformation happens, and it has almost nothing to do with judging other people. It has to do with one question quietly replacing another. Instead of how do I keep this relationship comfortable, the mind starts asking, does this cost me more than it gives me? Once that question exists, it doesn't go away. It just runs quietly in the background of every interaction from then on, at work, at dinner, in group chats, and that's why the withdrawal spreads. Not because the person suddenly dislikes more people, because the filter got sharper. Here's the part that flips the whole story, though. It's tempting to think this entire process is about finally seeing through other people. That's the story it tells itself, at least at first. But that's not actually what's happening by the end. The truth is stranger. The pulling away was never really about understanding others better. It was about, for the first time, understanding themselves at all. All that noticing, all that quiet filtering, all that exhaustion, it wasn't primarily aimed outward. It was the first real chance the person ever had to hear their own thoughts without someone else's, expectations running over the top of them. So the disappearing everyone talks about was never really disappearing. It was the first time they actually showed up,